are the co-founders of Dipper.
Dipper is a technology platform that guides professionals of color to a better workplace, one review at a time.
Dipper is your safe space. It is the time for you to share your voice with a community that you are a part of. Visit us and join today at ourdipper.com.
Welcome, everyone. We are so excited for you to be tuning in today because we have a very, very special guest, and we're going to tell you all about him in just a second. But before we dive in here, according to Alzheimer's Association, 65% of Black Americans say that they know somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia. Among Black Americans ages 70 and older, 21.3% are living with Alzheimer's. Half of the Black identifying population say that they have experienced discrimination while seeking care for a person living with Alzheimer's. And only 53% of Black people believe that a cure for Alzheimer's will be distributed fairly without regard to race, color, or ethnicity. Those are some stark stats. Here with us today is Dr. Stephen Salloway. He's an internationally recognized leader in clinical trials for the prevention and treatment of Alzheimer's disease. He received his MD from Stanford Medical School and completed residencies in neurology and psychiatry at Yale University. He's the founding director of the Memory and Aging Program at the Butler Hospital, associate director of the Brown Center for Alzheimer's Disease Research, a professor of neurology, and the Martin M. Zucker Professor of Psychiatry and Human Behavior at the Warren Alpert Medical School of Brown University, all located in Providence, Rhode Island. Yes, the smallest state. His program has conducted more than 125 clinical trials for Alzheimer's and related disorders. He has chaired the steering committees for major 80 pivotal trials, and he has been a lead author for key publications in Alzheimer's research in the New England Journal of Medicine, Nature, and other top-tier journals that have helped shape the field of Alzheimer's research. He has published more than 400 scientific articles and abstracts and edited 3 books, and he lectures widely about the early diagnosis and prevention of Alzheimer's disease. Woof. You do it all, Dr. Salloway. You do it all.
It's embarrassing. Thank you. Kind introduction. It's a lot.
Awesome. Well, I'll kick it off to Jacinta. I know we have some pressing questions.
We're so glad to have you here with us this afternoon. So many people tune in to join us on a quick lunch or coffee break, and this is a topic that is top of mind for folks. So I would love to just start off by asking you, Doctor, what is the Memory and Aging Program, and how did it come into existence?
Well, thanks so much for inviting me and for covering this important topic, which I'm sure is of great interest. As you mentioned, the statistics are really sort of mind-blowing, really, about how common Alzheimer's is and how frequently all of us are affected in one way or another, either directly or indirectly by it. So the Memory and Aging Program is a program based in Providence at Butler Hospital, affiliated with Brown Medical School. And we opened it in 1997 to really focus on Alzheimer's disease, try to understand what causes it, how can we detect it early, what treatments can we bring to it to either now prevent or delay it and slow it down. And also education, like we're doing right now, is really important. So I'm so glad you're covering this because it's a topic that's still difficult to talk about. It's sort of like cancer was 20 or 30 years ago before there were more treatments. People were really afraid of it, and you often didn't disclose to the patient that they had cancer because we're afraid it would make them depressed or take away their hope for the future and so forth. And people still feel that way about Alzheimer's disease. And so the way to dispel that is by talking about it and getting people informed and finding out all the advances that are going on and what people can do. So you're covering this really helps. And so our program is devoted to moving this field forward.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Dr. Salloway. My next question here is, what is Alzheimer's versus dementia?
Sure. So people are often confused of what's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia. They often speak about them in the same way. Dementia is a general term that means that there's memory impairment that interferes with day-to-day functioning. And there are lots of over 100 diseases that can cause that. So football players who have a lot of head injuries can get dementia. People with stroke, with Parkinson's, with HIV, some alcohol, so many things can cause dementia. But Alzheimer's is a disease made up of certain proteins in the brain, plaques and tangles, that is the most common cause of dementia. And so that's why people often confuse them. But dementia can be caused by many things, but Alzheimer's is the most common form of it.
Yes, thank you for that explanation. And I think that you led right into the next question is really what causes Alzheimer's?
Well, that's a great question. That's what we're all trying to figure out.
It's what we're all trying to figure out, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
And see what we can do about it. Certainly, age is the biggest risk factor. But one of the conceptions about Alzheimer's is it's not a normal part of aging. It's an abnormal part of aging. So age is the biggest risk factor. Genetics and sort of family history is another very important component. And then it turns out that a lot of other factors like heart disease and stroke and smoking and all kinds of other things can contribute to Alzheimer's and dementia. And so they can add in when someone is at risk for developing some of the changes that go on in the brain. And what we've learned, and I want to thank the thousands of study volunteers who have made this possible, is that the plaques, that's a protein that builds, clumps of protein that build up in the brain, start to accumulate in Alzheimer's 15 to 20 years before the memory loss. So things are changing in the brain well before there are any symptoms at all. And then that stimulates an abnormal environment, which causes another clump of protein, call it a tangle, made of tau protein, that forms inside nerve cells to start to build up. And when that happens, the nerve cells start to break down and their connections break down. And that's when we get the memory loss and the decline in daily functioning. But it's a process that goes on in the brain for a couple of decades before there are any symptoms. The good news is that we now have ways to detect that. Initially with PET scans, a brain scan, you can see the plaques safely. And now we have blood tests that are coming into the clinic. This is going to be really important for people to know about. And we're all going to have to decide, do we want to find out, especially as we're getting older, where we are at risk for developing Alzheimer's sometime in the future or not. And we've also identified a very common gene called the ApoE4 gene, which increases the risk for Alzheimer's. And that's a test that you can do it through 23andMe, but we can also do it in the clinic. And we do that as part of a research program.
Thank you so much for that. Are there any other breakthroughs kind of regarding Alzheimer's research?
Well, fortunately, there's been a lot of advances, and we've been excited to participate in them with centers all around the world. And again, I want to thank the study volunteers, because without them, we wouldn't be making advances. Yeah. And we really need more people of color, more people from every background, because the people that tend to volunteer for research studies are Caucasian and highly educated, and not represented fully of the total population in the United States or anywhere around the world for that matter. Yeah. So we need to create an environment where people feel comfortable participating. That's an important goal for our program and for Alzheimer's in general and for medicine in general. Yeah. Because typically medicines are tested in people who are Caucasian, and we don't have a broad representation, and there are differences by ethnic group And there are many factors that contribute to that, which we need to understand better. So we need to have a broad representation and broad participation. So I think the biggest advances are, we know now because of the volunteers, how the plaques and the tangles are building up. We have a way to detect them with a brain scan. We now have a way to detect them with a blood test, which looks pretty reliable. And we have medicines to actually remove the plaques and slow down the disease process. And we have 2 drugs that were recently approved by FDA after a long drought where we had no new treatments, 18 years actually. We now have 2 new drugs, and we may have a 3rd drug later this year that are approved, and they get in the brain and they actually remove the plaques from the brain and hopefully slow down the memory loss. And we're testing those type of treatments, that plaque lowering, for people who are at risk, who have no symptoms but are building up plaques. And so those treatments will be, hopefully Medicare will cover them. So far they haven't. So that's another hurdle we got to get over. We'll find out in the next few months if they will. And then we're also testing this type of treatment for prevention, which is really exciting. So that gives people more reason to find out about their risk, to see if they can lower that risk if they are in a higher risk group.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. We have a pretty important question here, and you mentioned the program. One person asked, how can someone participate within this study?
Right. So we have in Providence, but if you're not in Providence, we have an Alzheimer's prevention registry, the Butler Hospital Alzheimer's prevention registry, and we can give you that link. And people can go on and sign up. You're not obligated to do anything, and you can find out, what kind of research is going on. We have a quarterly newsletter, which is really terrific. There's a website with information about the studies that are ongoing, and people can, and if they want to find out more about their risk, we have studies just for that, without any type of intervention or ongoing type of involvement. So there's lots of opportunities if they want to find out if they're building up, if they're having some memory trouble, and if they're building up plaques and it's due to Alzheimer's. We have a study for that. Which provides the PET scan at no cost. It's a Medicare study. So lots of different opportunities to participate. And this is going on around the US. So if they're not in Providence, they can find a site near them.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. Is there a specific age that one?
Yeah, age is important. Every study has its own criteria. Generally, it's for people about 55 to 90. Is the main age range. We want to make it lower because we want to find out about risk even earlier and try to intervene earlier and modify that risk. And there may be, I think for our prevention registry, it starts at 50. But there are there's something called the Brain Health Registry, which has a much lower, people can look online for that, has a much lower age inclusion. Another study I want to mention, where we're in our last days, if someone wants to be part of this, we want you, because we're in the very final stages of recruitment. It's called the US Pointer Trial. And this is a whole different approach. This is a lifestyle intervention where we're looking at exercise, diet, brain stimulation, and heart health for people who are at risk for Alzheimer's. And this study is for people 60 to 79. Who are cognitively normal but have a family history, have hypertension or some other medical condition that increases their risk. And we're using this type of lifestyle intervention to see if we can improve memory in those people. And we're going to end recruitment on March 2nd. So if people are interested, we can also provide the link for that for the US Pointer Trial.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
There's no medication in that one. Now, the other point is there's no charge for participating in a trial. All the testing and if there are treatments involved are provided as part of the study. There's no charge. That actually usually the participant receives a small stipend for covered travel and things like that.
That's what I was going to say. I may or may not have done that in college, but typically,
Yeah, and we have studies for young people too, to look at like brain function and brain networks and things like that. And so there are other options too that aren't directly related to Alzheimer's, but really trying to understand.
And we do share this video on our YouTube channel, and we provide any follow-up links and information. So we'll make sure to include all of that. So there's been a lot of references shared here, very helpful info. And one thing, Doctor, I think about a lot, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners do too, if I forget my keys, the date, why I walked into a room, just generally being forgetful or having horrible short-term memory, should I be concerned? Like when is the flag of like when you should really be concerned?
Right. So it can be a little tricky because as we get older, all of us, you guys are too young for this, but as we get older, all of us have those lapses that you're talking about. And, misplacing things and finding the right word and remembering names and remembering details and multitasking, all these things slow down with age. That's part of aging. And it makes people worried. Oh, that's my senior moment. That's my Alzheimer's, whatever.
And someone just said that actually, Doctor. We call it senior moment.
We all say that. And the question is, when is it your Alzheimer's and, something more serious as opposed to just normal aging? And because the symptoms of Alzheimer's, the early symptoms of Alzheimer's overlap with those symptoms. What happens in Alzheimer's, it starts happening more frequently. So it's not just once in a while, but they're misplacing things frequently. They're forgetting where they park the car more than once and really have trouble finding it. We all do that a little bit, but it becomes more of an issue. They don't remember whole details, whole events from the day before, not just a detail. That's concerning because they're not storing the event, not just, one small piece of it. Other people are more aware that they're having trouble than they are. That's concerning because they're not catching on. They're not monitoring about their memory function as well as others around them. So these are all signs that there may be something more serious going on and worth talking to your doctor about.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that. My next question here is, why did you decide to pursue a career dedicated to curing Alzheimer's?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking that. I always wanted a life of service. I didn't know what it was when I was a kid. I had a grandmother who had Alzheimer's, had dementia. She lived with us for a while and then lived near us for years with her. We saw all stages of her dementia. So I was in an impressionable age when, that happened. And then as I went on, decided on medical training and neurology, I wanted to make a difference against a major disease. And I knew how much we needed to do for Alzheimer's. I mean, there just weren't good treatments. There weren't good diagnostic tests. We weren't in the era of modern medicine for Alzheimer's. And it's such a big problem. I mean, it costs more than heart disease and cancer, the care, because it lasts so long. And so I think those combination of factors, I trained in places where I saw that research can really make a difference. I mean, I was fortunate. I had Nobel laureates as professors as a medical student, and I saw what people could do with their career. And so I decided Alzheimer's was the way to have the biggest impact. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the best thing about it has been the partnership we have a wonderful study team. And so, working with such a great group of people, but the partnership with the study participants, the volunteers, it's just amazing. They're so inspiring. They put themselves forward. They usually do it because they don't want their children or grandchildren to get Alzheimer's. It's in their family. They know what it's like. And they're willing to do amazing things.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Thank you. And what are some of the common misconceptions or stigmas that you see about Alzheimer's? that you think would be great to just clarify right now?
Yeah, this is a big issue, actually. And we started out talking about that right from the beginning. I think a lot of it is that people think it's a normal part of aging, which it isn't. It's a pathological part. It's common, really common, as you mentioned with your statistics, but it's not normal. People can live to 100 and not have Alzheimer's and be cognitively normal. People are very nihilistic that there can be any treatment for it. It's considered to be an untreatable condition, and hopefully we're changing the needle on that, because that's what will lead people to come forward and get diagnosed or participate in research and so forth. Is people need to feel more hopeful about it, because up till now, I think a lot of people, including physicians, feel like, oh, there's nothing you can do about it. Don't even try to diagnose it accurately. And it's really important to get on. It's so impactful for patients and families. It's really important to get on top of, because it requires a lot of resources to manage it well. It's a real drain on patients, and especially family members who have to care for their loved one for so many years. So I think those are the two. The other most important one, really, of the three, is that people feel like somehow they're defective. It's something they don't want to talk about it, because it's something like there's something wrong with them. It's different from diabetes or cancer or heart disease. There's some kind of personal defect that they don't want others to know, because it affects their mental health and their ability to think and function. And it's not like just having a disease in another organ of the body. The brain is so vital to our personality. And the fear of becoming dependent that makes people not want to talk about it.
Yeah. And we're so happy that there are doctors like yourself that are so committed, invested, and honest about this. So we really thank you for your work.
Well, we're so happy there are people like you that want to cover this story, because really, I think the media, social and conventional, really is going to be the key for increasing awareness and changing the narrative about this. Correct. And that's going to take a lot. All of us need to get involved with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. My next question here is, why do you think there's a lack of diversity in clinical trials, especially Alzheimer's?
I think the biggest issue, again, I'm not an expert in this, but it's a priority. I think it's trust. I think there's a lack of trust, a lack of comfort. I mean, it's a touchy topic anyway, because we just talked about that. People aren't hopeful. They feel like there's a defect. They don't want to really talk about it. It doesn't reflect well on their family, whatever. So, and then I think, trust in the medical system. Will their needs be first and foremost? Will they be well cared for? Are they comfortable coming for a sensitive diagnosis like this and sharing this kind of information? Are they comfortable? They feel safe in a clinical trial? Will their needs be respected? And so our program really tries to put the needs of patients first and foremost. We want them to feel like we have their back. We're so appreciative if they're participating in research. Even if they come as patients, we're so appreciative that they're coming, and we want to support them and be behind them. And the nice thing about it, I think the tide is turning, but we have much more to do here, is that I notice we're beginning to root each other on, that the patients and the study volunteers are rooting the staff on, and the staff are rooting them on. And it's sort of like a club. And it's really a positive experience. So I think, people can take heart that there are now options out there for them that are safe to explore. Another thing we need to do is make things accessible. Not have to come to a hospital, not come to a part of town they may not be familiar with, have more things happen at home or in the community, have blood draws at a local lab for a study. Just do things, make things on a tablet or on a smartphone. Just make it really easy to participate in research. Lower the barrier. That's what we're trying to do in medicine.
And then more people will come Yeah, no, that makes so much
We
sense.
need input. We want input
Yeah.
from every community, especially underrepresented populations,
Yeah.
about what would work for
Yeah.
them. We really need that. And so community scientific partnership advisory boards and input, this needs to be a shared challenge for us to
Absolutely.
overcome.
Well, we have a ton of engagement. We're going to have you back
Yeah.
on, Dr. Salloway.
That'd be great.
This is a
I'm,
thank you.
I'm so motivated to talk to
I love it.
your audience, because I want to
Yeah.
hear what they think and have to say.
Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Like I said, we're going to bring you back on. Those of you that are tuned in, please let everyone within your network know about these studies. It is so, so important that we get information on these things, right? So that we can start to solve these issues that exist. And as always, head to ourdiffer.com, interact with us, let us know about your experience and the topic today, and we will be back next Thursday. Take care.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.